Hello, hello. Okay, this is the last episode in our series on marriage, your husband, and your business. And I have sad news. We had a scheduling conflict, and my husband, my better half, is not going to be able to be on here personally. However, we have talked through so much of this stuff, and I'm really excited to share kind of his thoughts and those things with you. But I am sad because I think it's so valuable to hear directly from him. So we'll have to find a time where we can do that. But for right now, it just wasn't happening and working out. So I'm very sad. But take a listen as I go through and just kind of share the thoughts that he shared with me. And then at the end of the episode, I have an announcement. So I hope you hold on to hear what's going on. Okay, let's get started. Hey, Kingdom Builder. Welcome to the Growth Against the Grain podcast. Are you struggling to find balance between what Jesus wants for you and your big business goals? Do you find yourself up late at night, overwhelmed by the goals and growth you long for while also lacking the confidence to get there? Do you wake up with big, ambitious dreams only to feel frustrated that you're not promoting and afraid you'll fail when another team member quits and you missed that promotion again? Hey, I'm Michelle. I too was tired of being in the same place year after year. I too felt frustrated and wished to build the business of my dreams. I wanted to honor the Lord, level up, and see my team succeeding. But I kept telling myself the products are too expensive, or no one wants to join me, or maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Does that sound familiar? Until I realized that all the growth and success was nothing if God wasn't my first priority. In this podcast, you'll find network marketing business tips, biblical mindset encouragement, and a little mama motivation sprinkled in from time to time, all so that you'll see the growth and success through God's eyes first. Let's partner together, grow against the grain of this world, and find that balance you've been craving. Friend, go grab your Bible, notebook, and that coffee that's been beeping at you from the microwave. Let's get ready to grow against the grain. I was just recording, putting the episode together, and have you ever been on a phone call and you're talking away and just jabbering on, pouring out your heart, whatever it is, and you're like, it's getting kind of quiet. Like, this is so weird, but you just keep going. Anyways, that's what happened. I was just talking away, and all of a sudden my screen went black. So I didn't continue talking too long, I don't think, only to realize that my laptop had completely turned off. So she is getting a little bit older and, getting to the point where I probably need to replace her. But anyways, that has nothing to do with our episode today. So as I told you already, we had a little bit of a scheduling issue and conflict, and I needed to get this out. So while my husband is not here right next to me sharing his thoughts, we have talked a lot about these different things. So I do feel confident that I can share his thoughts from his perspective, but absolutely not anywhere near as good as he would, because he would just love to hear from him. So we will do that at another time, Lord willing. And at the end, like I said in the intro, hold on till the end because I'm going to share something with you pretty exciting. So I did a poll in a couple of different places and kind of just asked the things that I hear most often, and I wanted to hear from you. So the number one, I don't even know how to put this, but I guess it's the number one question / frustration that most women have, like yourself, when it comes to your marriage, your husband, and your business, is balance. Balance. And it's such an arbitrary word, I think, where we're trying to figure out, like, what exactly does that even mean? Because balance is going to look different for every person. And my husband was really cute as I was asking him some of these questions. He's like, well, it's really kind of hard to answer these because it really depends on the dynamic of the couple, and it depends on the husband and his thoughts, and it was an opportunity for me to just kind of thank him for who he is and the husband that he is and the supportive person that he is. But also it opened my eyes to realize that a lot of you have a very similar situation. You have a very supportive husband. And what we realized is oftentimes one or both of us is making the situation worse by simply not communicating. And as much, and we've talked about this before in episode 280, we were talking about, your number one most important relationship with your spouse. Episode 282 was talking about communication. The last episode, 284, was talking about how I haven't prioritized my husband and what that has looked like, and do it differently, right? And so when we talk about prioritizing or balance, this whatever that means, the biggest obstacle is not often balancing that time. It's the communication that comes before that, and just helping everybody to be on the same page. Helping your kids, it's important that your kids understand too, because if they're confused and not, it's going to certainly cause strife between you and your husband, right? Because everyone's like, what's going on here, and the kids need this and the kids need that. And so what does balance? Gosh, I wish that there was like 3 steps to balance, and there kind of is, but it's really more in communicating what you need, communicating what's going on with your business, and making sure that you're setting some time aside to spend specifically with your husband, and making sure that you're putting some time aside that you can spend with your kids, your family. And I find that for myself, when I actually verbalize what I'm thinking, my husband's like, "Oh, okay, I'm totally on board. I can totally do that." But when I'm like huffing around, I'm frustrated because I've not told anybody what I'm thinking, like, I'm just causing more problems. So when it comes to balance, he and I were talking about this, and I said, I feel like in my mind, I think I need to set aside, 4 hours at the end of the night where we can hang out and spend time together. And while that would be amazing and wonderful, the reality is, he was like, I just want to spend a little bit of time. Like, what if we had like 30 minutes of devoted time, or maybe we're sitting together, we're watching a show that we like, or we're just being together and not so much distracted by the other things in our life. I'm like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. Same thing, I think sometimes it's easier to think about these things when it comes to our kids, and then draw the parallel, like, oh, okay, just transfer that and do that with your husband. When it comes to my kids, like, they don't necessarily want 3 hours of my time. They would love, especially when they were little, like if I just sat down and played with them for 20, 30 minutes, built a Lego with them, played their dollies with them, and then they're like, okay, great, I got to hang out with mom for a little bit, or maybe we read a book together, or whatever it happened to be. And maybe your kids really do want more than that, but setting those expectations and then finding that balance, putting the phone away, which leads to the second most common frustration and question, was creating the boundaries. And I think these go hand in hand. If we're creating boundaries, then we're making space for margin. We're making space to spend time together. We're making space for other things. There has to be an on time and there has to be an off time. And I think I've said this multiple times. I don't know if this is true outside of the United States, but I know it's very true within the United States, that it is like work, 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 work. I was watching a documentary type thing. It was on the History Channel. We don't have cable, so I can't remember which streaming service I was watching it. Maybe Hulu, and it's called "The Foods That Built America." And my parents had, recommended it, so I'm watching it, and I found something really interesting. The faster we supplied food to people, the busier the lives got. And I was looking, it's really great to be able to look from this, 30,000 foot view, where we can look at the 1920s, the 30s, the 40s, the 60s, the 80s, and here we are today. And we can see some of those ebbs and flows, the pendulum swinging the different ways. So if you've got the late 1800s, early 1900s, especially when we get into the Industrial Revolution and we start, with with factories, and we start seeing this convenience food. And it was interesting at the very beginning of it, and there's a point, I promise. There was what they were saying at the beginning of that is convenience food, or going to buy your food, was like a very bizarre thought. They didn't need that. They didn't know anything about that because they grew all their own food. They did all of that themselves. To fast forward, we're trying to figure out how we can, as quick as possible, get our food out because everyone is in such a rush. Go, 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 go. And when I think of creating boundaries, we are in this vicious cycle where we're always trying to do things as quickly as possible, so that now we've made space to add more to it. Instead of going, oh, wow, I've got this extra 30 minutes that I actually don't have to fill with anything. I can read a book. I can spend time with my husband. I get to choose. I can fill in the blank. Do with it what you want. So it just was this interesting thing. The faster the food got, and then here we are in 2023, where I don't know about you, but the whole idea of homesteading is very appealing. I'm like, ooh, I would love to be less dependent upon our fast food, and our know a little bit more of what's going into my food. So I just thought that was an interesting um, commentary on our society, right? Okay, so number 3 was you don't feel like your husband is supportive of you and or your business. And so we talked a lot about this, my husband and I. And I feel very fortunate that I know my husband has always been supportive globally. Like, he's supportive of the idea of whatever it is that I'm doing. Yes, he gets it. But when we get into the weeds of it, and this is where I was talking about episode 282, I think, on communication, he's supportive to a point, but there's a couple factors in there. When he was seeing that my effort and what I was making, my take home, what I'm earning, is not measuring up. Like, I'm putting forth, and many of you are doing the same thing. And there's a part of your business that is that growth phase of your business that you are putting in so much time and effort, and there's no way that you're getting paid for that. But you're doing it with the hopes that on the flip side of it, it's going to pay off, right? So there's that, where maybe you don't feel like he's supportive because he's watching you work so hard. And if you think on the other side of it, how many times do you watch what your husband is doing and you get frustrated and annoyed and feeling like he's being taken advantage of because he's working so hard, and people, you just can see things a lot clearer. That's the same for our spouse. Like, he can see these things that maybe we're too in the weeds in and we can't fully understand it or see it. So I would guess that it's not that your husband isn't supportive, it's that he doesn't understand all of it. So go back and listen to 282. And this goes in line with the 4th thing that you guys said was your biggest question, frustration, knowing how to talk to your husband about what you need from him regarding your business. Figure that out, breaking it down into the nuts and bolts, and maybe even asking him, like, hey, what do you want to know about what I'm doing? And I think I shared, like, my husband is in radiology. There's a lot of things that I don't even understand, but like, we have to care too, to like just listen and glean. And sometimes they just want to talk and tell us what it is that they've done, and we want the same in return. Like, we're not always looking for them to fix our business or fix what it is we're talking about or create a solution, but we just want to know that they are supportive in listening to us, right? And then number 5 was prioritizing your husband. Your question is, you just don't know how to do that. So I would encourage you, go listen to episode 284, where I share the flip side of the ways in which I have not prioritized my husband, and am really trying to flip that around and find ways where I can show him that he is so important to me, and he is my number 1 most important earthly relationship. So it's really kind of interesting to me how we answered a lot of those questions without really even knowing it, because this poll was going on through the course of these 4 weeks. And I am so sad that he couldn't be here, when you couldn't hear his heart behind it. And I really do feel like he is a great example of what many of your husbands are. And some of you do not have a supportive husband at all. And you're like, no, no, no. When I say he's not supportive, like he actually is not supportive. I don't know what to say to that. If you're listening, you are likely a Christian, a believer, and you're probably praying for him. And I would just say continue doing that. Continue praying. And one thing that I have just been going through is I think for like the last 2.5 weeks, I was studying through Psalm 139 and really listen to my episode where I tell you how I go through and study God's word. But it's so cool to see our God. Like he knows every part of it. So whatever you're struggling with, whether it is an unsupportive spouse or even bigger problems within your marriage or the quote unquote smaller things, our God knows all of them. He knows, he's searched us, he knows us, and the great thing is he's chosen us. If you are a child of God, he has chosen you, and so he's aware of all of those things. And he wants to hear all of them. All of them. Even if you're asking, like, Lord, I don't know how to prioritize my husband, or how do I create these boundaries? He's really good when we ask these things to answer those questions for us. So, friend, I hope that was, if really nothing more, it was kind of like a recap of what those last 4 episodes have been like, and just sharing, a little bit more about what my husband's thoughts were on those. I promise I will get him on the podcast another time, because I think you would love to hear from him. I keep telling him he needs to start a podcast, but we'll see if that ever happens. So, flipping gears, or switching gears, I guess is the best way to say it, I have a little bit of an announcement. So, this is the last episode for June and the last episode for a little while. I am going to take a break for the month of July. Okay, so just a month break. I'm going dark for the month of July. It has been just a little bit of craziness over the last couple of weeks, and even more so, since December, and really the last 2 years. Starting a podcast takes a lot. I'm putting all of these things together, and I just feel like it's time for me to step back and just take a little bit of a sabbatical, a little hiatus. And I would love to say that I'm not going to be working on the podcast while we're off, but I will, because we're coming back big on August 1st. And I am so excited for what's to come. Now, I will leave this caveat that I'm always leaving room for whatever the Lord has planned. I mean, what is it? We plan these things out, and God directs our steps. So I am fully here for whatever God is directing, and what his plan is, and what he wants. But just know that it is my heart to come back August 1st with a big surprise. So, if you happen to hop on and you're like, where are all the episodes? That's why. In the meantime, because I don't know, I just thought this would be fun, I started a brand new Instagram account to chronicle my DIY adventures. Oh yes, I have watched so much HGTV that it is finally paying off, and I've just been working away and doing some different stuff, doing a shiplap wall and board and batten and fixing things and doing stuff. And so I thought, well, I love watching a good DIY, so why not? So I started a new Instagram account. And in addition to my It's Me, Michelle Castro, you can go follow Flip Flops and Table Saws. Yes, I know you're probably not supposed to wear flip flops while you're using a table saw, but that's what it's called, Flip Flops and Table Saws. And I don't know what's going to happen with it. I just think it's so much fun, and I love watching a good DIY, and I thought I'll just chronicle those things over there. So you can go follow me over there, Flip Flops and Table Saws. I'll leave a link in the show notes so you can just quickly click over there. But I am literally living my best DIY life. I am actually getting ready I'm going to go change my clothes and do a little bit of work on a countertop that I'm working on. And I plan to share all of that stuff over on Flip Flops and table saws. So, in the meantime, have an amazing July. I'm going on vacation, doing a few things, and excited to come back bigger and better. Love you, friend. I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, before you go, if you learned something new or found value in today's episode, would you pop over to iTunes to Growth Against the Grain and leave a review and subscribe to the show? That would be awesome. And if you'd like to connect with my community of other mamas just like you, learning to align their audacious goals with what God has for them, then join us at bit.ly/Christian Mindset Support or click on the link below. There's always room for one more. Can't wait to see you over there.